When we're talking about quality management systems, we are talking in the topic of medical devices. And a medical device is everything that people can use from early birth to end of life. And these devices that companies are developing need to be put into different risk classes, because it doesn't make sense that we overdo the documentation on a device that is not as critical as other devices. So if we're looking into the pyramid here to the right, then in the bottom of the pyramid we have class 1, and these are typically out-of-body devices. And if we go one level up, then we have the low-medium risk classes, and these are typically in-body but in a transient use, and it means that this device is in the body somehow with less than 30 minutes. And if we go one step up again, then it's still in-body devices, and it's in the body less than 30 days. Then you're in a class 2B. And then on the top, this is the highest risk class. And this is typically products that are of high risk and would be typically pacemakers or hip implants. When we're talking about risk classes, there is a total of 22 different rules that might apply to get the right risk class. So this is of course very, very standard, and you need to go in and do your risk classification in full and find out what is your risk class. Based on your risk class, you need to divide or provide a number of documented information to prove that your device is safe to use and it works according to the performance that you claim it. And if you go into class 1 devices, then you do not need a quality management system. It's always good to have one, but by regulation it's not needed. So there is a way that you can avoid setting up a quality management system and get faster to market. There are several advantages in a class 1 device, and also the notified body access or approval you do not need with a class 1 device. As soon as your device is having measuring functions and getting up to a higher risk class, here is your quality management system needed. And it makes a lot of sense to work with a quality management system, even though it's not required, because it will keep track of your documentation, it will keep track of your processes, and as soon as your project is running more than 1 month, I actually personally think it's a good idea to have a quality management system. But for delivering a medical device to the market, then you need to make first of all a conformity assessment. Then you need to write technical documentation. You need to set up a post-market surveillance system. And then what is important is also that you are having a person that is responsible for regulatory compliance. And that person needs to have 4 years experience in the space of medical devices and QMS systems. So it's important that you get such a person. If you're not having it in-house, it's okay to hire a consultant that can help you in these documentation approvals and so forth. So you actually do not need to have a person full-time in-house when you're a smaller company. Also, you have to go through a notified body audit, and today there's a lot of bottleneck situation in the notified body area because of the new regulation, but this is not the topic for today. Last, we need to work with the CE marking, which is the goal of the companies to get the CE mark so they can start placing their products on the market. And then there's other activities that you need to do from there as well, which Niels Christian was just talking about earlier. But the topic for today is quality management systems, and if you go into a larger corporation, then you often will see your quality management system illustrated in a triangle or pyramid like this in 4 levels. The top level is for quality policies and objectives. The second level is a quality manual. The third level is your standard operating procedures, and this is where most people in the company will work on daily basis. And the last level is with guidelines and instructions. The fourth level is nothing that you're going to get audited in. So we're going to focus on the three top levels. If you drill in or double click, or what is the term for just going to the next level, then you take your pyramid and then you actually realize that your quality management system is a set of documentation. It is actually not an IT system or an electronic format or any of any kind. You're actually allowed to make your quality management system paper-based. And paper-based is how people have been working in a long time, because it previously has been a lot cheaper to work this way. It's easier because you don't need to set yourself up with an expensive quality management system electronically. So people have been working in Word and been printing out and signing the documents on paper, and this is absolutely still allowed. But of course we want to work in the best way possible and work in an effective company. This is the approach also as a part of a quality management system, no matter if it's electronic or not. But if we go into the first level, I'm gonna select a few documents from the quality management system which is important to highlight. But the quality management system will cover all the levels of your company, from early quality expectations, and then they go into your documentation and qualifications, and from there we need to talk about product development and also manufacturing, and in the end post-market surveillance is a topic that is highly focused right now, because there have been incidents in the industry occurring because the post-market surveillance activity has not been very good carried out. So there's an extra focus on this right now. But let's start from the beginning with the company quality commitment. And this is a commitment that the CEO needs to sign. Because the CEO will be the person that is responsible for getting the right resources available to carry out these activities. And if the CEO has not committed himself to quality, or him or she, then there will be no resources at the right time to carry out these activities. So it's really important that the CEO or top management signs these documents. And this is something that an auditor will find very important. So this needs to be done. And basically this is the document where the person says that quality and ethics is the most important for this company, and we're not going to harm any people, and quality and ethics comes before actually putting products on the market that is not safe. And just to show you an example of a quality policy, then it's a simple document. It can be a simple document where you just sign that quality is a business advantage, all the different topics and objectives that is important for your company, supported by quality. So you can now see that there's a higher goal by this quality management system. If we take the next level, this is the quality manual. And the quality manual is where the company will look to the outside world and figure out where do we want to put our product on the market. If we want to go to the European market, then we're following the European regulations or directives. If we want to go to the American market, then we're following the FDA guidelines and regulations. And it could be that we want to approach more markets, and then these regulations need to be interpreted, and this interpretation needs to go into the quality manual. And based on that quality manual, the company will find out what is the minimum requirements to live up to the company's quality level. So from the quality manual, you will not look out on the regulations anymore. So the quality manual will say how is it expected to work inside the company. If we go to the just having an example of the table of content of a quality manual. And it's pretty much in alignment of the ISO standards. The ISO standard is the helping international standards for setting up a quality management system. And the good thing about following international standards is that people already know the expectations. So people can come from different companies. Onboarding is going to be quicker. Most companies are using the international standards, so everything is working really flexible and effective if you're following global international standards. Going to the third level, or the next level here, is where I find it's the most important focus area, is about documentation. Documentation is the source of information where you can provide documented evidence that your device is working as intended. And if the information that you have provided is not documented, then it has the auditor will not know that your product is safe. So there are some general rules that if it's not documented, it has not happened. And if it's not signed, then it's not documented. So these two rules is something that you need to really keep in your mind, because it could be that you're working on document, you're working in a draft document, and you're very happy about the content, but if it's not signed, then it has never happened. So you need to make sure that you document your activities, and then you're following that activity until you have the result that you want. It's really important. And the date and timestamp of these documents is really important for the sequence of events that is following the whole design and development and production of your medical device. The second most important thing is that people need to be qualified for the job role. So if you're not qualified, then the documentation that you're signing is not valid. So you need to provide documented evidence, again documentation, that the people have the right education, experience, and training to do the role. It's okay that you do not have the right education, but you can continue with education and training to be able to perform your job role. So based on your job role, you need to be provided training in the company that you're working in. And that training could come from a QMS system. And this is why, again, it's really important to have your QMS system, because this is what you need to be trained in to be able to work in the company. So those two is the very most important activities in your QMS system. And people might disagree a little bit, but I think it's most important. So please focus on those two. If we're going into the areas today that people are talking most about, the focus areas, so it seems that documentation and training is now something that it's just there. People should know how to do it. But if the documentation does not look nice, then of course it sets the whole quality of the whole system in risk. And talking about risk, then this is the key topic at the moment, together with post-market surveillance, which one of the things I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But the risk assessment is where the companies or the auditors is now going in and really having a key focus on assessing. And this is also where the big corporate companies are now focusing, because it's important that you're spending the right amount of time on risk. You're not inventing too many risks that will never happen in the future. So a risk is a potential issue. And when you're developing your system, you would not know if those risks are actually going to be an issue when you're going live or when you're putting or placing your product on the market. So currently, based on regulation, risk is really important, but also based on performance and an effective business, it's important to be able to align risk with incidents and see, are we really focusing on the right activities in the company. Typically, a company will find 100 or 200 risks on a device, but in an incident or a post-market surveillance phase, you will get 10 to 20 different incidents. So possibly you could work better with the last risk, or downgrade the risks. And so you're focusing on really what really matters. But working with risk, it's about identifying a risk, it's about evaluating the risk, it's about risk controls, and then in the end you need to accept the risk. And these steps are quite similar no matter which industry that you're in, but this is the approach and the processes that you need to take to identify the risk for the device. So it's something that you need to focus on as soon as you have the right documentation, management procedures, and also that you're having your training. Then please look into what is your risk in your device development, and also in your surroundings, supplier risk, and so forth. Post-market surveillance is also in a focus, because there have been some industry standard or scandals putting a more focus on what happens to the product after it leaves the manufacturer. And if people are not being concerned about highlighting incidents, trending on incidents, and taking care that if patients get hurt, or maybe even worse, in a post-market surveillance scenario, then we have a problem. So with the new regulations of MDR, there's an increased focus on post-market surveillance, and it means that you need to consider yourself both with proactive post-market surveillance activities and also reactive post-market surveillance activities. And reactive means that you get an incident. You would not know that that incident is coming, but it's coming from the patient using your system. So you need to collect incidents, you need to collect complaints, and then you need to trend on those incidents and complaints. And if it's a serious incident, then you need to report it. And if it's not a serious incident, then you need to trend on it and see if too many incidents are occurring. And that will feed directly back into your risk assessment. Proactive post-market surveillance means that you would possibly have a control group that you continuously monitoring while they're using your product long term. Because when you put your product on the market, usually you don't spend too much time on the clinical tests. So what you want to continue doing is that you want to monitor a group long term, so you can get the feedback and you can make the corrections before the incident occurs from the patient population. And these information you need to collect, you need to trend on it, and you need to compare it with your risk management situation and figure out, did I do my risk good enough? Am I putting a product on the market that is safe? And does it perform according to specification? So these are the activities that you need to really focus on. And if you look at the right-hand side on the bottom, there's also an increased focus on monitoring, review, internal audits. And this is why the setup of an EQMS system is now interesting to do. Because now you're not just delivering a set of documents, you're not just delivering a technical file, which is existing of many documents, but you now need to prove that you're continuously improving on your documentation and your device. So an EQMS is now a very good solution where you can get electronic signatures and you can get your documentation working for you instead of against you when you are in a maintenance phase and also in a design and development phase. So when is it the right time to introduce a QMS system? Because usually when we get in contact with our clients, it is when they already have produced a prototype. They're already quite far in the development of their medical device. And really, if you want to do it in the right way and you want to get the right data stamp and the right sequence of events that an auditor would expect, and if you want to get the value from the beginning of developing your device, then you actually need to start from the very beginning of introducing a QMS system. I know this is not the current focus areas, but companies do the effort anyway to set up a Dropbox or they set up a Google Drive, and this is sort of already setting up a quality management system. But if you could get a system that will help you with all these things that you're anyway setting up in these freeware tools, and you can get a system that will make you work by quality by design, then it's something that you should look into in the very early beginning of your journey of putting your quality management system on the market, because I promise you that you will save a lot of rework, and you will get the help on getting to where you want to go instead of you do trial and error all the way. But putting your product on the markets, the first thing I would recommend to do is doing a regulatory conformity assessment. So you need to go out and figure out where do you want to put your product on the market. Is it in EU? Is it in the US? Or is it somewhere else? And from that, you need to identify what is your deliverables to be able to get to that market. So make an assessment, and you will get kind of like a gap assessment. And from that gap assessment, you will know which are the documentation that you need to produce to get to the market. And from that set of information, you can get the help of an electronic quality management system, or setting up your quality management system and knowing that these are the activities that you need to complete. This documentation needs to go into a technical file. And this means that you can now focus on the goal, and instead of you trying to guess what is the requirement, you now have a defined goal at the end, and therefore you can work directly towards where you want to be. And when you are having what you need to do, you have all your testing, you have all your documentation, which you have collected now by design, then you need to talk to a notified body, or you need to talk with regulatory authorities on the markets that you want to go in. And then you need to make an application, and then based on that documentation that you submitted, you will get an approval. And here in this slide, it's a CE mark you will get, and that will mean that you are able to sell your products in the European market. But after also, when you now reach the final goal and you're really happy about putting your device on the market, your post-market activities will begin. And this is the post-market slides, or the document that I highlighted before. This is something that you need to prepare before you go on the market, and then you need to execute against it when you're on the market. And these activities are occurring again and again and again. It's an iteration process, and an auditor will visit you every year to figure out, do you follow your own processes? Have you updated the documentation correctly? And if you're using an EQMS system, then you will get the right information at the right time. And an audit and a re-audit will not be a big deal, because you already know that the documentation is available. You always know that it's the latest information, and it's going to be a conversation instead of an audit situation that you're going to be in. Working with an EQMS system, and this is something that we are, for example, building. We want to help companies overcome this activity of building a QMS system, which was previously documentation in a paper format. If we can adapt this paper format and make it as an electronic format, then we also can apply electronic signatures, and we can make this whole process of developing a QMS system, but also the technical file, a much easier task to do. And if you look into this platform, then it will have the same areas of processes and modules, are we calling it, as you would see in the triangle showed before, saying these are the expectations, and guess what, we have a QMS system that supports these processes. So when you're using these things and you're clicking in and you're using the system, then you're actually working by design, you're working as expectations by regulatory affairs. So this is what, of course, we urge people to do. We recommend that you will look at these things at the early beginning. There's many systems out there, but you need to figure out which is the simplest one to approach and also the most cost effective. This slide is a little bit difficult to read, but what it will show you is that you will have your whole QMS structure as a project structure that you would know from a project Gantt chart, for example, and it will guide you through the levels of documentation that you need to produce. And it will also give you an indicator if you're following it the right way, if you are following it in the right time. So you can get an indicator and say, I need to spend 100 days on our QMS system, and then you can communicate this to management, and you can get the feedback and you get the resources that is needed. If you need guidance or you are spending a little bit too much time, then you will also get a notification, and the dashboard is going to turn yellow and red. And then management, for example, or whoever is monitoring this activity will have an indication that attention needs to be made on these products or these tasks. So basically, it will help you, guide you through this whole process of implementing a QMS system. So what are the motivation to start a QMS system when you're working in a startup and you're just coming into SUND, for example, and somebody says you need to work with a QMS system, and it's not your primary focus because you want to develop a medical device, you want to save human lives, you want to make quality life for patients even better, and nobody told you about a QMS system. What is this? So the motivation of working with a QMS system is, of course, if you go from the top, it's about patient safety. Working with a QMS system, this is a way to document that the product that you place on the market is safe to use and it has the right performance as you indicate. If patient safety is not your priority number one and money is your priority number one, it should not be, but it's a trap. Then market access is the next thing you should focus on, because you cannot get to the market without having the right documentation. So when you apply for market access, they will go, you have not documented in the right way, so you need to redo everything. So at least think about market access. And if you are an entrepreneur and you want to be able to sell your company, or you want to sell your product to a larger player in the market, if you want to make your company worth more, then you need to start documenting your activities, because it could be that you have a wonderful product, but if you have not documented the journey, then people will not buy your product. You need to go back and you need to document, so the company that buys your product knows that they can reproduce this product and they will get the right performance as you indicate. And if you are an employee of a company, then you should really think about raising the value of the company, but also as a standalone person, as soon as you can work with a quality management system in this space, I will actually recommend you to do it. And I will also recommend you to ask the CEO or the people that you're working with to introduce a QMS system, because this is really valuable for you as a person, also as an individual, because as soon as you get the training, you also start getting the experience, and then when you also have that qualification that I talked to earlier. So as soon as you get in, you get an edge to the other CVs of people or individuals that are out there, and you make an edge on your application when you need to apply for a job. People in this industry need to see experience, they need to see qualification. And if you show that you have understood and you have read the QMS system, you know what is a technical file, and your competition do not know this, then you're going to be ahead of the game when we're talking about your own personal values of working with QMS systems. I don't have too much more in this presentation, but here's some contact details. We also offer you to get started for free. Try to use a QMS system. You can go to our webpage and you can actually, with this link, register, and you can get a URL where you can start your QMS journey immediately. and then you can see if this is not something that you want to start up. And at least it will give you some indication of what is the minimum requirements, and then you can make your own decision if you want to continue. But I'm guaranteeing you that you will benefit from this, and please just look at it and get the value.